level, to a higher plateau, to a higher level in Him. It's bringing back things, not just to the normal condition, the way it was, but just as we look at it's restoration with retribution. And retribution is bringing to a higher level, just as Job did, and he got twice as much back in the end. That God's going to pay double for the trouble. And so remember when even Jacob thought Joseph was dead. He's gone. I'll never see him again. So it was 13 years before Joseph got into that position that, he was born for, that second position in Pharaoh, under Pharaoh. And so then there was 7 years of good famine. So you're 20. And so it was a few years into the famine that his brother showed up. So you're talking 23, 25 years. All this time, he thinks, Joseph dead. Then all of a sudden, he didn't even see Joseph. He says he saw the wagons come and that Pharaoh sent. He said he was revived in his spirit and he didn't even see his son yet. But he knew that he's going to see him. And so here we think, you think 23, 25 years, you think that is gone, it's out of your life, and it comes back. And so there's things that we think that is totally gone, it's erased, it's done with. How many things we wrote off? It wrote off in the sunset. We'll never see it again. And so he's doing that to bring us back. He wants to bring back not just that, but more. Bring more back into our life that we think we've lost. And so how much, you just think, how much effort when you restore furniture, how much work goes into that? It just doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of process, the stripping away, and that's what God is doing. He's stripping things away, but He's going to reapply something new. And it's going to look better than what it was before. And so just look what He has done here, years and years, over the years. That is nothing in comparison to that which He's going to do. Because He said the latter house shall be greater than the former. And so what He wants to do in front of us is greater. He wants to reinstate things. How many people have been, you lost your job, but then they get back to the place, and we got to give you a raise. And so He wants to reinstate things back into our life, back into this place. And so in the restoration, He repairs things. Things are broken. He wants to renew, bring life, renew things, refresh things that we think is gone, that is broken. He wants to bring them, just like the prodigal son, he was out there. But he come back. There was a change in the pig pen. He leaves. I want what you have, but I don't want you. And so, but he comes back with a whole different attitude. I want to be a servant. How can I serve you? I'll live in a servant's quarter. But the father went out there every day looking for him, knowing he's coming back. And that's the way we got to be. We got to be looking. It's coming. It's coming. We got to look for it. We can't be like the elder brother. We got to be looking for it, expecting it's coming. Because I believe so much it's restoration time. And so as we look at it, there's a cross in the midst of restoration. You can't have restoration without the cross. Look at what Jesus did. You and I were restored back to the relationship with God. How? Through the cross. So restoration comes through the cross. The cross is snapped down right in the middle of that thing. And so Jesus went through the cross to bring us back to the place of relationship, fellowship, because you and I were created to have fellowship with God. And so He desires that. And so even within our life, you can be praying for restoration, but fight the cross. See, if we live a crossless life, we live a powerless life. And so it's through the cross He's going to bring restoration back into our life to restore things. And so, like I said, it's just like, like when the enemy's found out, He's going to restore sevenfold. And so there's this restoration, there's this returning that He wants to bring back into our life. Because he wants to make all things new. All things. What's dead, He's able to take the ashes of life, make something beautiful out of it. Right? He's able to take a nobody and make a somebody. And so that's what He's doing. And so, like I said, excuse me, I heard this word the other day, inception. It's at the beginning of something. And I believe this whole restoration process, what he wants to do here, we're at the beginning of something. And it means the commencement. So just as Trenton went through the commencement and how many schools are doing that, they're coming out of one into something else. It's just like you come out of the house, you stepped into the car, you stepped in the car, you come out into the church. So you always come out of something to go into something. And so they're coming out of one place, and he's coming out of one place and going into something else. And so we're at this place of inception that he wants to start something. It's the beginning of something. And so we can't look at what it was. We got to look at what he's doing. Look at what he's doing. Get caught up in what he's doing, what he's saying. Because he says, remember not the former things. Because how many times we get hung up on what it was? But he says, behold, I'm doing a new thing. I was reading through Isaiah. I've been reading through Isaiah. Even the other day, he says, I'm doing something new that I've never done before. It's created for now. How many things we've heard of what he's done? We've never seen it or experienced it. There's so many things it's new to us. We've heard of it, but we've never experienced it. And he wants us to experience these things he wants to do. And so we're just as commencement, like I said, you're coming out of one thing and you're stepping into something else. And haven't gone this way before. Haven't done this before. And so we can't look at it how it was and how they did things, but we got to see what's he doing. Just as Israel crossed the Jordan River and came into the promised land, they stepped out of the wilderness. They stepped out of just enough to step into more than enough. See, things stopped. The manna ceased, but look at the provision that was given to them. And so the Jordan River means descending death, but it's a type of cross. Remember, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, they lived at the cross. The other ones, they didn't cross over. They lived at the cross. The other ones crossed over. So it's through the cross they stepped into the promise. So how many promises we have in our life? How many words has been given to us, prophecy, vision, dreams, and revelation? He's spoken through the word. And so we have all these things, but you got to go through the cross in order to step into the promise. And so in verse 3 there, he restores our soul. There always has to be a work with before there'll ever be a work without. How many times we pray for things to change out here? It will never change out here until there's a change within here. And so that's what he wants to do. God wants to start within us to produce that which is on the outside. You got to change on the inside, because we talked about a little bit last week. How many things we want, but you really don't have the heart for that which you want? How many things in life you prayed and went after, you got it, and then you got, not so exciting, was it? Remember how the 10 lepers, they were, Jesus says, go show yourself to the priest. And so as they did, it says, as they went, they were healed. Could you imagine the change that they began to see? So the one saw that, he runs back to Jesus, and Jesus says, well, where's the other ones? And they went on. And so Jesus prayed for him. And he says, the 9 were healed, but the 1 was made whole. See, God doesn't want us just healed. He wants us whole. Whole, spirit, soul, and body. And so he wants us whole. Could you imagine his fingers grew back? The skin, maybe his nose grew back. You know, because leprosy ate your body. And so things begin to grow back where I'm sure he met up with the other 9. What happened to you? How come I didn't get it? Because you didn't go back. He wants us whole. But I was thinking about that. How much emotional problems was with this guy and not just physical? Because the leper was not allowed, no fellowship within the city. I was reading about that. They had to go around, leprosy, and everyone was given a bell. When somebody approached, you had to tell them and ring that bell, I got leprosy. And so he had to name himself who he was. And that's when God didn't create him that way. And so how much of the family he was cut off? How much society? He couldn't hang out with the people that he used to hang out. And so there was so much, how much rejection did he take on? how much, the loneliness, and I got to hang out with all these other miserable people. Misery loves company. And so he's got all these issues, and I believe there's so much more than just the physical within his body. That he was made whole of the emotional pain, the emotional scars, the emotional things that he was having to deal with. They had to go find their own food. And so there was so much that I believe that Jesus dealt with way down, because deep cries unto deep. How many times people look at you, I'm doing good, but they're dying on the inside. And so there was a healing that took place deep down within. And I believe the same thing. This ministry has taken a beating over the years. Well, you've been around here. We've taken a beating through all the Ukraine and Israel and other issues. We've taken a beating. God wants to heal all the hurts, the disappointments, the rejection. He wants to heal all that stuff that has taken place. And we don't carry that baggage where we're going, because we're stepping out of something, stepping into something. It's inception. It's commencement day. And so stepping into something, but you got to let that stuff go, because if you hold on to your past, you'll never embrace your future. You got to let that stuff go. You can't carry with that stuff. And so here, he restores our soul. In Psalm 42, verse 11, it says, David says, why are you cast? He's speaking to himself. He says, why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you disquieted within me, hope in God? So it happens with sheep. When a sheep would find itself in a small ravine and get comfortable and sit down there, then they get to a place they can't get up. And they roll on their back, and it's like a turtle, and it's on their back and can't get up. And so it's talking about sheep can enter into a place they can't. They can't move either way. So the shepherd's always got to be paying attention and, to get them out of that place, because it says the gases build up within their stomach, and because of the hot sun and everything, they die. The blood, the circulation within their body does, it cuts off the circulation and all that. And it says especially happens to those that are the sheep that are pregnant. They get it down in a place and they can't get up from that place. And so David is saying, he says, David is understanding that. He says, he's seen it, that in that condition. Being in a comfortable place can be a deadly place. We can get so comfortable in that place and we don't realize how deadly that place is. And so the shepherd's there, just as he is, he's the good shepherd. He's always out there to lift us up. And David's speaking to his soul. He says, hope in God. Put your expectation in God. You're going to get through this thing. And so in those places, we need to see that God is always wanting to get going, stir you up. And he doesn't want you to stay in that place, because in a place of complacency, we fail to see what he's speaking, and we fail to receive those things that he wants to speak within our heart. What's this saying? Complacency. How's that? I can't remember how it goes. Complacency. Oh, okay. We'll move on. I know it, but anyhow. So in a place of you could become complacent, you become satisfied. And we become content in that place. And he didn't call you to that place. And so we need to be careful, because things happen in life. Life happens. And many times we take on the hurts, the rejection, the disappointments, and we stay and we live in that stuff. And so the more that you feed upon it, the more that it grows. And the more you just become so complacent, you stay and remain in that place and not ever coming into the things that God has for you. And so he says he's restoring our soul. So like furniture, it takes a process. There's a restore. It doesn't happen overnight. We love it when God does the miracles. But he doesn't do it all that time. How many things you pray through and you got to walk this thing out? Walk out your salvation. And other things he's done. It's done. But other things in life, he just got press through all that stuff. And so, like I said, there's a process that we have to go through, things that we have to deal with in life. But he's changing within. See, society wants to change the outside. Doesn't change the inside. See, he says in 1 Thessalonians 5:23, it says spirit, soul, and body. This world works body, soul, and spirit. It's just like I was sharing a Bible study the other night. St. Louis says we're going to deal with this poverty situation in town. So they built this huge apartment building, had all these amenities, the tennis court, swimming pool, and all that kind of stuff. And so they took all these people and they moved them into that high rise. Within 5 to 10 years, it was destroyed. Why? You changed the outside. You got to change the inside. Because they brought that down to the level of their street. They brought that down to the level of their living. And we always do that. As I said, 75% of the people that win the lottery are broke after the first year. Because you bring it down to the level of your living. And so he's got to change. He wants to bring the wealth of the heathen to the church. But the church has to be wealthy within before you're wealthy without. You'll never steward the riches of God until there's a prospering within. He says that we are to prosper even as your soul prospers. So if there's no prospering within our soul, we're not going to be able to handle the riches of God. And he wants to bring that, but there has to be a work within before there's anything done without. And so we can be praying for all this stuff, but we got to get back to, I'm dealing with your soul. Because he wants to bring the riches. He wants to bring these things into our life. But there's got to be a change within before there's a change without. And so society wants to change all this and we'll make things. They didn't. Could you imagine? And within 10 years, it was destroyed. It became just like the street. Because we want to change. We want the easy way out. And with God, it's not the easy way out. We're going to go through life. We're going to go through life, deal with stuff. And so he wants to deal with in here because he always looks at the heart. Is your heart in what you do? Because how many things we do that my heart's not in it? And I get it. We take the garbage out. Is your heart in it? No. You got to do it. And they're saying, but he wants us to get to the place. It's no longer a job. It's a ministry. That the things that God has called us to do, the things that we're doing, is it a job or is it ministry? Because our heart needs to be in it. Remember Adam? He was told to keep the garden and to dress it. Keep it, to guard it. To dress it means to take care of the plants and everything there, but also to worship. So God created Adam, and that which he did was to worship God. So everything that we do it as unto the Lord, because our life is to be a sweet smelling incense unto him. Our life is to be a sweet savor unto him. So that tells me that everything that I do, I need to do it as unto the Lord. Because he says in Proverbs, he says, he weighs the spirit. How many times we weigh the body, he weighs the spirit. Because he wants to see on the inside, not the outside. And so we've got to get to the place. Because even Jesus said, he says, are you a shepherd or a hireling? A shepherd lays his life down for the sheep. A hireling is a job. And even Jesus says, he says, when trouble comes, when adversity comes, the hireling is going to run. Come on. When trouble comes into our life, do we run or stand? Get me out of here. He wants us to, because the shepherd has a heart for the people. The shepherd has a heart for the sheep. And he's willing to stand as David did and dealt with the bear and the lion. So he's asking us, do I have the heart for that? His heart. Because we looked at before, you and I are to give glory to God. Just as an apple tree bears apples, it's doing what it was created to do. And because it's producing apples, it brings glory to God. So when I begin to do, each one of us, when we begin to do what we're created to do, we bring glory to God. So everything that I do is unto him, because he looks at the heart. So there has to be a heart change. He's working for, because You could be here, but you left your heart in San Francisco. It's like Lot's wife, she was coming out, but where was her heart? Back in Sodom. And so Israel was coming out of the promised land. How much did they kept looking back? We remember the onions, leeks, garlic. Just like I've shared the other night, just how a person could walk into McDonald's and say, I want a turkey club sandwich. And guys, is that a new thing on the board? We don't have that here. If you want that, you have to go down to Subway. They got turkey club sandwich. But I really want turkey club sandwich. We don't have it here. How many times you could be in a place and you're asking for something and they don't have it? But you're in the wrong place. But you're wanting something. How many things in God that we're asking for, but you're not in the place to receive it? You're asking for God to do something, but you're living in fear, worry, and anxiety. Samson wanting the power of God, but he's in Delilah's house. See, we got to be in the right place to receive what's on the menu. Here's his menu. But am I in the right place? Because the soul is the seat of our appetite, our desires. I can desire something, I can want something, but am I in the place to receive that which I want? They wanted meat, Israel did, and so he gave it to them, they choked on it and died. Thank God he doesn't give us everything we want. We'd be just like them. See, that's the problem with most people. They're wanting something, but not living in the place that they want. And we got to get to, and so he's dealing with that which is with soul. Because I can have victory within my spirit. God has created us, body, soul, spirit. We can have victory within our spirit, but have a defeated soul. Look at it this way. Israel was brought out of Egypt. It's like you and I coming out of this world. We accept Christ. So they come to the Red Sea. And the Red Sea is a type of baptism. So they went through the baptism. And God says, look at them. That's the last time you have to deal with them. Egypt was dealt through the baptism. But what happened when they come into the wilderness? Wah, 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 wah. Complain about this, no food, no water, tired of manna, and just rebel against Moses and Aaron. They complained about, they were defeated in the wilderness. It's like God we ask Jesus within our life. So, I've seen this many times. People ask Christ within their life, but they live defeated in their mind. You pray in faith, but you speak in doubt. Think about this. Jesus went into the wilderness and he was tempted 40 days. He went through all that temptation, and it says in Luke 4 that he came out in the power of the Spirit. See, we all find ourselves in wilderness times in our life. But we need to see Israel was defeated in the wilderness where Jesus overcame in the wilderness. And he came out in power. Because how many times we go through the wilderness and thank God we're over that. But we should be coming out different than the way we went in. They were defeated in the wilderness. And so many times that people they ask Jesus within their heart, within their life, but then they're defeated in their soul, their mind, their will, their emotions. How many people's emotions like an elevator? Just constantly changing from room to room. And so we got to change. We got to change that. We got to set our affections on things above. Because affection is inward. It's your desires and all that. And so it's that which is within. And so Paul is saying, set your affections, that which is within, on him. We got to turn our affections towards him. Value what God values. What he values, value that. Pursue that. Go after that. See, it changes. When you value what God values, it changes your perspective. It changes your focus. It changes your attention. Because there's so many things out there that's wanting your attention. And so, does not God value people? And so if he values people, we need to value people. Because he doesn't want us to be conformed to this world. He wants us to be transformed by what? The renewing of our mind. That to be a change. He's called us to be salt. He's called us to be light in the midst of that. Because he says, even in Isaiah 60, he says, the glory of God shall be what? Seen upon us. His glory. The glory of God is his character, who he is. And instead of they seeing us, they see him. So his glory is to be seen upon us. So there's got to be this change of affection. There's got to be this change of desire. And so he's restoring our soul because so many people are defeated in that area. Because we can ask Jesus into our life and still live out of our soul. It says those that are led by the Spirit of God are what? The children of God. And so we got to be led by the Spirit of God. He orders our steps, our conversation right. He guides us. He directs us. He moves us. He leads us. And so our affections is that which is within our, be tender-hearted, tender mercy. Those things that your desires, your interests, is our affections. Because affection brings direction. If you don't like the direction you're going, it's because of your affection. So if you change your affection, it changes your direction. I love that verse in Paul said in 2 Corinthians 6:12. It says, you were not restricted by us, but you are restricted by your affections. Paul says, I'm not setting any restrictions upon you. He says, your affections, those things that you desire, those things that you crave, those things that you want, he said, that is what restricts you. Because how many times God will ask you to do something? I ain't called to that. That's not me. I'm not going there. Well, what do you do about when he says we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us? What do we do about that? He never contradicts himself. See, we make limitations. We put restrictions on us just as they did Israel did. He says they drew a line in the sand. Oh, I'm not going there. And so we can do the same thing. Because he says we can do all things through Christ, the anointed one. So we can do all things through the anointing. He empowers us and equips us. He strengthens us. And so he wants to restore our soul to remove those restrictions. Because doesn't he say one day that you and I we are to cast out devils, raise the dead, heal the sick. And so what happens when God puts you in front of situations like that? Do we walk the other way? And so he's always going to bring things across our path he wants us to deal with. Don't call me, call him. And so he's always going to bring things. If it comes across your path, he wants you to deal with it. Don't run from it. He's equipped us, he's empowered us to do that. And so we know, not if, we know he's bringing restoration. We know he wants to restore our soul. So we need to work with him. And it's through the cross. So it's through the cross that he wants to do a work within us, to change within us, to bring about the change outside of us. But it starts within us. And so, like I said, we've taken a beating over the years. But he wants to heal all that. That none of that goes on with us. Removing all those things. Just stepping out of just enough into more than enough. Stepping out into that which he's called us to do. touch the world wherever he has. Because Jesus went through 3 G's. Gethsemane deals with your soul. He went to Gabbatha, where he was beaten, that dealt with his body. And then he went to Golgotha, the skull. The skull, he knows, is here. Because he knew the greatest battle that you and I will ever face is here. And so he got victory there. But I want to back up to Gethsemane. When Jesus was in that place, he got victory in the garden where Adam was defeated in the garden. So Jesus got victory. So the battle, how many battles that you and I face? We know this, we face it, we see it. But the battle in our soul many times is not as evident as all the other battles that we face. There's a battle within that is going on within our soul many times we're not even aware of that is taking place. So if Jesus was in Gethsemane, which means pressure, it was in the press. So it's in the press. How do I respond? How do I react? See, we got to get victory in our soul, and he wants to show us how to get victory in our soul. If we can't get victory in the press, we will never move on from that. We got to move on from that. Jesus didn't stay there. He knew what was in front of him, what he was going to have to deal with. So when Jesus submitted, it said, not my will, but your will be done. It says the angels came and ministered to him and strengthened him to do what he was called to do, because he was born to die. And so he was given that strength. And so how we respond in the pressure. We all deal with pressure. We all deal with life. And how many times you think that the pressure is just increasing more and more? And so we got to press into pressure, just like the woman with the issue of blood. She pressed through the crowd. It was a man's society, but she's pressing through the crowd. Just like Chuck Yeager, he broke the sound barrier. So he pressed through that where everybody else backed off. And so it's in the pressure is how do I respond to that? How do I react to that in the pressure? Because like I said, the soul is the seat of our affections or the seat of our personality, our will. God didn't create us to be a bunch of robots. He gave us a free will. Just as he told him in the garden, there's 2 trees. There's always 2 trees in our life, in our garden. We have a choice. And so God created that. And so so Jesus committed himself to the cross in the garden. How many things in life? Do you ever face something in life? I don't want to say this. I don't want to go there. I don't want to deal with that. But how many times when you commit to that, okay, it's not as bad as you think. You know, it's just, why? Because heaven comes down and helps. Because you committed to that. So the pressure, see, if you're not committed to the pressure, you're defeated in your soul. Let's say that again. If you're not committed to the pressure, you're defeated in your soul. Because in the pressure, what's our first response? Get me out of here. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to go there. And the list goes on and on. So if I'm not committed to the pressure, I'm already defeated in my soul. Every marriage is going to have problems. Every family is going to have issues. Every job is going to have issues. Relationships, everything is going to have issues. There's going to be pressure. But how many times people give in to the pressure and they back off or go to another job or divorce, separate? So there's always going to be pressure within life. You can't escape it. You can't run from it. It's going to be there. So if you run from this, you're going to face it over here. So it's just like stress. You got to learn how to deal with stress in life. Life can be stressful. So if I'm not committed to the pressure, I'm going to live a defeated in my soul. And so he doesn't want us to, he wants to restore that we press through that. Because if Jesus got victory in the pressure, there is victory for you and I in the pressure. But I got to remain in the pressure. I got to submit to his will, what he wants to do in that. And so when I submit to that which he wants to do in the pressure, because how much demand is put upon us? This comes up, and you didn't see this coming, and it puts a greater demand, it puts a greater pressure on our life. But if I'm always wanting to run from that, I'm not going to have victory in that area. How many husbands and wives are married but they have no relationship? They just live together. How many, I was reading this morning, 27%, like a quarter of the families within the United States are dysfunctional. They don't talk, they don't get along. So in the pressure that you and I face and go through in life, you got to commit to it. You got to, yes, I'm committed to this, 110%. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to remain here. See, that's when heaven shows up. That's where you get victory within your soul. Because how many times have we blown it? We missed it. Get me out of here. You know, I don't want to deal. I'm tired of dealing with this. So the more that we give into that, you're feeding that. You know, our soul is like in layers. Just how many times you peel an onion? And you got to keep peeling that back. And many times our soul is the same way because we keep feeding that. I want out of here. I don't want to deal with this. And the more your person deals with, refuses to deal with the hurt, disappointment, rejection, it's just another layer. Another layer is filled up. And so in the pressure, stay in it. Just be like a woman of issue of blood. Be like Chuck Yeager. I'm staying in. I'm committed to this. That's the place heaven shows up. His peace, his presence. It strengthens you to deal with it. It strengthens you. You still got to go through it. But heaven's with you in that thing, in it. Stay the course. Run the race. As Paul says, I've learned to be content in whatever state I'm in. No matter what I'm faced, no matter what I'm going through. I've learned to stay content in that. Because being carnally minded, Romans says, being carnally minded is death. But being spiritually minded is life and peace. So I encourage you, in the pressure, stay within it, stay the course. And as you submit to that, your will be done. Because how many times, as Jesus did not, I look at it this way, Jesus did not move from the garden till he said yes. How many people's life are on hold? For decades, for years. Because they refuse. I'm not giving in. And they keep giving into the pressure. They keep fighting it, keep struggling it. We got to come to the place, not my will, but your will be done. Have your way. And so when we do that, heaven shows up. Heaven helps us to encourage us to get through those things. Because what is going on within my soul, it will always spill over into my body. In John, 1 John says, we prosper even as my soul prospers. If there's no prospering within my soul, my body is going to come under the attack or the effect of my soul. How many physical problems today are stemmed from the soul? And we're trying to do all these things, and we're dealing with the symptom instead of going to the root of the problem. And so these physical problems come up in our life, it's because of the condition of your soul. Pastor Frankie would say all the time, dis-ease produces disease. Because you're not at ease within. We got to be at peace. On Wednesday nights, I've been talking about peace and rest for, I don't know. Because we got to get victory in that area. We got to. Because as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when Jesus returns. How was the days of Noah? It says violence. What are we seeing? Violence is increasing more and more. Noah, a name in the Old Testament meant something, not too much today. Noah means comfort, rest, peace. He was comfort, rest, peace in the midst of violence. That's what we need to be when he returns. But if I'm not that, I'm outside the boat. Are we in the boat or outside the boat? We got to be in the boat. We got to be that. I believe that is what is going to get people through those times, because we see it escalating more and more. Whoever thought years ago you see people bringing guns and shooting people in church? Never thought of it. But it's increasing more and more. We can't live in fear of that. We've got to live in peace in that. Peace in the midst, because that's who he is. The Prince of Peace dwells within us. Peace is the presence of God. So if there's a lack of peace, there's a lack of presence. And so that's what, how important, you think about the things that you and I eat. If we eat the wrong things, how much plaque buildup within, it affects his body. And so if I'm feeding my soul doubt, unbelief, stress, fear, and all, what's happening to this body? What's going on with the soul? It always spills over into the body. And so there's got to be this change, transformation within our soul. And that's what he's doing. He's doing a work to deal with those things, deal with those issues. Because then he says twice, he said, the spirit of man is the candle of the Lord, my spirit. But if I'm living out of my soul, it doesn't say your soul is the candle, it says your spirit man. Because he says that the spirit of man will sustain you or support you in times of trouble. How many people they collapse under trouble? Why? Because their spirit's weak. If your spirit is strong, it supports you, and nobody else supporting you. It will support you because your spirit is strong. And so that's what we can't live out of our mind, will, or emotions. We got to live out of our spirit. That's what he's created us to do. But he's given us emotions. He's given us, personality. He's given us these things. But we got to I always look at the spirit is the king, the soul is the queen, the body is the servant. And so what happens when that is out of order? Just like going to a Coke machine, you can't get nothing out of it because it's out of order. What happened when Jezebel ruled? The kingdom's out of order. And so he wants this kingdom in order because God is a God of order. Remember everything he did within the tabernacle. He set the bread in order. They didn't just throw the wood on the fire. They set it in order. God is a God of order. He's not a God of confusion. And so our mind is like a computer. How much stuff that we need to erase? How many times you see something and you're just like, oh, you can't erase that one, And so many times our soul becomes. How many times you see a cow path? It's just worn out. It's no grass. It's all worn out. And so many times our soul is like that. It's just this beaten path. And because we get comfortable, we like this, and but he wants to remove those things because it's so easy to stay in that rut. And that rut becomes a grave with the ends kicked out. And so it's just something we stay in there that he wants to bring such change within our life, within our heart. And it starts within. And so he wants to restore. Why did Jesus go to the cross? Bring us back to the Father. So it's through the cross he brings restoration. And so whatever he's dealing with within our heart, within our life, submit, do it. Do whatever you got to do. Because we're praying for all this stuff, and all this stuff can't come until this is dealt with. Because if you brought that stuff, we would be just like those poor people getting that beautiful place. In 5 or 10 years, we would bring it down to where we are at now. God does not want to bring us up to a place and then we fall from the. How many people within Christians within this world have attained to high places, and they have fallen because of immorality, greed, and other issues. They have fallen from that place. God doesn't want us to fall from it. He wants us to get to that place, stay there, remain there, like Joseph did. And so he's dealing with this. So allow God to deal with this. Can we play that song now? And so as it goes through here,